Welcome to Celebrating Act Two. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.
What a great day. We're here with Herbie J Polito. How you doing, Herbie J?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Great.
Herbie J, you have always a great attitude, but you also have a large body of work. And we've talked about 2 or 3 of your books. I think you've got a dozen. Is that about right?
Yes, and 3 more on the way.
Don't ever stop. So I wanted to talk about the book you did on a really unique show called Life Goes On. And I don't remember the years that was on, but I remember it was a wonderful show, wonderful family show. We watched it religiously, but it was unique because even today, I think it's considered unique. You'll have to tell me whether I'm right or not. It featured the first, I think he had Down syndrome, the first actor with Down syndrome, Chris Burke, maybe? Was that? Yeah, that was very unusual for the time. Has anybody done a show like that since with an actor who is portraying himself with the disability that he really has?
No, actually they did. I mean, Chris Burke had done a TV movie with Michael Braverman, who created Life Goes On. And Michael Braverman came from advertising, and he had a nephew, I believe, who had Down syndrome. So he decided to do this TV movie, and it was essentially a hit. It wasn't the same story of Life Goes On, but then they just fell in love with Chris Burke, who played in this movie, and they gave him a weekly series. It was the first time that a TV show featured a character with a disability on a weekly basis. Jerry Jewell, who has cerebral palsy, she was on The Facts of Life as a guest star, and then in a semi-regular capacity. And that was in a sitcom. But Life Goes On was the first 1-hour drama to feature a character with a disability on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and what a great cast. I mean, not just Chris Burke, who did a terrific job. At first we watched the show, we thought Chris Burke was an actor without a disability playing an actor with a disability, kind of like the guy on L.A. Law. Do you remember that, Art?
Yeah, L.A. Law is the one.
Yeah.
I remember he was like an office, not the office manager, but he was like the aide that would.
A male. He was the mail guy, I think.
Mail guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, mailroom. He worked in the mailroom.
Right, and then Glee had somebody in a wheelchair who I don't know whether he was even disabled, and then
but Life Goes On was way before Glee.
Right.
Life Goes On debuted on ABC Sunday nights, 1989. Lasted to 1993. Starred, in addition to the great Chris Burke, Bill Smitrovich and Patti LuPone.
Patti LuPone, I know. Was that her first TV role, by the way?
Her first regular series, yes. I mean, she had starred as Lady Bird Johnson previously in a TV movie about President Johnson's life. But she just had she brought this incredible stage presence and talent, just amazing talent, onto the show, which also started Kelly Martin and Monique Blanier, Tommy Pewitt, and later on, Monique left the series, and Tracy Needham stepped in as Chris Burke's sister, and then Chad Lowe joined the series in the 3rd season as a character who had AIDS. Now, Chris Burke really had Down syndrome in real life. Chad Lowe did not have AIDS in real life, but he played this character who did. Yeah. And that came on his first episode, debuted in November '91, the same time Magic Johnson made his announcement that he had AIDS. So it was very, very interesting how that happened. And the show really was 2 different shows when Chad joined. The first 2 years focused on Chris, Corky, Thatcher, Corky and the Thatcher family. And then the 3rd season more focused on Chad Lowe, who played Kelly Martin's boyfriend, and they became the center of the show, kind of encircled them. I kind of wish that they just would have spun those two characters off on their own, Kelly Martin and Chad Lowe's characters, Becca Thatcher and Jesse McKenna, into their own series, and had Life Goes On continued like it did, but that's not what had happened.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating that Braverman would build a show really around Chris Burke. I mean, that was the central. This was not just an ancillary character.
No,
That was the whole family focused around.
Exactly. It wasn't a show about a kid who had Down syndrome. It was a show about a family who had a son who happened to have Down syndrome. Yeah. It was an incidental thing. They treated him, the family, the Thatchers, mom and dad, treated Corky just as equally as they did Becca and the other sibling, Paige, played by Monique Lanier, and then Tracy Needham. And they got angry at Chris. They got upset with Corky, just like they would the other children. So that's what made it great.
You know, it's kind of interesting.
That's what made the show so magical.
But it's kind of interesting.
And so real.
The show and all the shows since then, whether it be LA Law or others that have people with a variety of abilities or challenges. I remember back in, I guess it was in the 70s, possibly, yeah, probably the 70s. I served about 10 years on a school board in New York before we moved to California. And that's just when the least restrictive environment kind of thing started. But till then, people with disabilities or different abilities, or however you want to frame them, were sort of put away in a school in a different location. They get bussed away. And least restrictive environment started bringing all these kids back to school, well, many of them. And I think shows like this really helped sell the public on accepting people who didn't look like them. And had,
completely. What Life Goes On did for the disabled community, and they don't even like that term. Okay, so it's what they did with those who are physically challenged is amazing. You know, it made them see that those with physical challenges are just like the rest of us. We all have flaws, and we all have emotional discrepancies, and we all, make mistakes every day, and we're all equal. We just look different, whether that's a physical difference, whether it's the color of our skin, whether it's the way we perceive things, whether it's politically or religiously. It's like, cool it, man. We're all mainstreaming. We're on this planet together, and we all have to stop with the divisiveness and just accept what makes us all the same, which is our humanity. Really, that's really the message of that show, and any true message of acceptance.
You know, I think also
Herbie,
something you can see that that where the effect has gone mainstream is about 10 years ago, Walmart started hiring a lot of people in wheelchairs as greeters, and people who had, I would guess, something like cerebral palsy, actually working on the floor and stocking shelves, and because they were able to do it maybe a little bit slower, different than we're normally seeing. But, there's nothing wrong with their brains or anything. And I think that shows like this and LA Law and Glee and all the rest of them have set the stage for that far more than, I guess in the movies there was who played Dr. Gillespie in the wheelchair? The original. But there was so few and far between.
I'm a TV guy. I don't know the movie.
Well, sometimes it's shown on TCM. So you have to switch the channel. But I think it's television that changed the mass audience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and mainstream is the word. Part of the premise of the show, Life Goes On, is that Corky was going to enter in the pilot. He was going to enter the mainstream education world, academic world. He wasn't going to go to a special school. He was going to go to the same school that his sister Becca went to. I mean, that was right there, groundbreaking. Series was just amazing, and the writing was amazing. Every aspect of the show was just terrific and top notch, ahead of its time. It balanced humor and drama, because that's what life is. Life isn't all drama, and life isn't all comedy. And it showed that that someone like Chris Burke, Corky Thatcher, who was physically challenged, didn't mean he didn't have a sense of humor, because he did. And to this day, Chris Burke, the real Chris Burke, is just amazing. He remembered, when I was doing the book, he remembered more about the show than anybody.
Of course.
And he says, he still says to this day, he goes, well, I don't have Down syndrome. I have up syndrome.
That's great.
I mean, his attitude is just amazing. He's an amazing human being.
Speaking of the book, Herbie, hold up the book. I assume you have a copy somewhere.
I think I
Yeah,
have.
so we can see it.
Yeah, this is it. This is, and these, yes.
I was just going to say, why don't you finish your thought before I change the subject?
No, I was just going to say that it's the Beatles, life's Obladi, Oblada,
Yep.
that opens each episode of the series. They use that as the theme. Life goes on.
Yeah, what I wanted to do is change the subject a little bit to talk about Michael Braverman, who created the series. Tell us more about him, because the writing on that series was just so wonderful. I mean, you would laugh and cry in every episode.
Yes. Well, Michael, he did write the foreword to the book, and I interviewed everybody pretty much for this book. So, including many of the writers and directors. Yeah, like I said, he began his career in advertising, and he just, which was probably a very wise move for a writer, because so many writers start out, just writing scripts, and they want to automatically succeed, and they forget about their life, and they forget that, well, they have to eat. So Michael did the wise thing. He secured, he secured his life and his career by having an amazing career in advertising, and then on the side, once he secured, he was financially secure, he ventured into writing then. But relatively, I guess, later in life, in his 40s, he did the show. But yeah, amazing guy. Michael Nankin, Rick Rosenthal, so many, E.F. Walgren, just an amazing assortment of writers who, for any show to succeed, you have to have a strong Bible, a Bible, an outline. And Michael Braverman set that out clearly on what the show was supposed to be, that what each character was supposed to be, what one character was supposed to do, and that character wouldn't act like another character. And they were all so uniquely defined. So all of that was there from the beginning, which is important to move forward in any kind of series. Sometimes today they create a show from just an idea, or they don't even go to source material, which I think is the best way to create a series or to create a film, is to write a book first and then have that film, have a film or a TV show adapted from that book. With Life Goes On, it was just a gathering of brilliance, really.
Yeah, it was a fabulous cast. I remember, of course, Bill Smitrovich has had a long career. We've seen him for 30 years after that as well,
Great actor, Bill Smitrovich, top-notch actor. I love the opening sequence of the show. They all have their little vignettes about, showing their characters. And he, as Drew Thatcher, the dad, mid-40s, he's about to get on an exercise bike, and he's in his T-shirt in the morning, and he goes to get on the bike, and then he's like, forget it. Why bother? And it was such a real moment. Like that moment in the Mary Tyler Moore show where she's shopping at the grocery store. She picks up the meat in the meat counter, and she looks at the price, and she's disgusted with the price, but she throws it in the cart anyway because she's got to eat meat, at that time. So I liken that scene in Life Goes On to that. So
yeah.
Just
So,
that 2 seconds, I went on and on about how great it was.
Right.
Well, obviously you like the book. You like the show because you wrote a book about it. Tell us about the book. What do you go through in the book? You talk about the characters, obviously.
Yeah.
But what else do we get out of the book?
Well, in the beginning, it talks about the creation of the show, and then it explores each character. And then it also has a biography of each actor. It has an episode guide, of course. But I also talk about things like how important the music was to the show. There's the whole section on music. And then I also talk about the fantasy sequences that they used to sometimes explore certain aspects of a storyline. And they did that a lot in shows like Father Knows Best, too. Maybe if Kitten on Father Knows Best felt her father was an evil gnome or something, she would then dream about it, and then they'd show it on screen. Life Goes On did the same thing. There was one episode where Patti LuPone's character, Libby Thatcher, was pregnant in her 40s, and they showed dream sequences of having that child come to her as 5 years old. And they did that dramatically and with humor on that series. So yeah, the fantasy aspects, the music, all the different aspects of the show are explored in the book, as well as the different characters and the actors, and as well as the episode guide.
Yeah. I think one of the things I like about your books, Herbie, is that you research them so in depth, and you talk to all the people who were involved, all the people you can. And so you really, even if you're a fan of the show, you learn so much you've never heard about before, and I'm a fan not only of the show itself, the entertainment, the scripts, and the storylines, but I'm a fan of the production. So being a producer as you are, you can bring out the stories of Braverman and the writing staff and people like that, which I appreciate.
Also, by the way, Herbie J, not only so you write a book, but you write a book that is acknowledged with your expertise. In fact, I just saw you were a significant part of because of the book you wrote on Elizabeth Montgomery. You actually read several books. That there's a series on Reels cable about autopsy, how people passed away and things like that. And you were featured significantly. I really enjoyed it. So it's not just that you write a book based on some loose knowledge. You've researched it to the point that you're considered to be an expert on those subjects, as we know, having spoken to you on a lot of subjects. But it's such in depth that it's really, whatever you write is worth a read.
Well, thank you for all that, Art. And the thing is, I don't really choose to do a book about a show unless I really, really love that show, or I love that particular actor that I would do a biography on or whatnot. And then once I tackle it, and once I decide to do the book, then I want to make sure that it's not just going to be a little trivia book, or it's not just going to be a companion book with an episode guide. I want to explore what this show meant, or what that person meant to their fans, or in every capacity, and so yeah, I dedicate myself to it. It's like, well, why do the book if you're not going to do it that way? I don't have the time just to do a clunky book. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to give myself over 100% to it. But getting back to the difference of the show, or the way it was produced, like John was saying, the first 2 seasons, as I mentioned before, were featured focused on the Thatcher family, and the second 2 seasons were focused on Becca and Jesse, the relationship that they had, and the challenges that they faced because he had first HIV positive and then AIDS. But the show even looked different, and it was produced differently. It wasn't just that they changed stories and premises. The first 2 seasons, it's more lightly illuminated and more brightly lit. There is more humor in the first 2 years. You can't do a lot of humor with AIDS, and so in the second 2 years, the lighting is different. Also, too, around 1991, when the third season began, TV was changing. The whole episodic storyline of what was happening in that episode with a beginning and a middle and an end, that stopped. And then the arc storyline began, which really kind of started with Star Trek The Next Generation. They started having the storyline go from one episode to the next. On Life Goes On, that definitely happened with Jesse. When Jesse came aboard, played by Chad Lowe, they did more arc stories. And that's all you see today, are arc stories on TV series, which really bothers me, because that means you got to watch, all 30 episodes before you watch the 31st episode, to catch up. Interestingly enough, not that we should be talking about Star Trek, but from what I understand, the new Star Trek series is going to go back to just the traditional storyline of wrapping it all up after an hour. So I'm all for that.
Interesting little bit of television history there.
I have one. John always accuses me of continuing on after we've had a great conversation, but I have to ask, what's up with Chris these days?
He's doing great. I want to say too that I have an episode of my second season of Then Again with Herbie J Polito that is focused on Life Goes On, and we have a reunion of the cast. We have Chris Burke, Bill Smitrovich, Michael Lang, the director, fantastic director of the show, Gloria Gifford, Tommy Pewitt, who was a huge heartthrob as Tyler on that show in the 90s before 90210 took over, and Troy Evans, who was a tremendous character actor who had a regular role on that series. So all of them got together for the second season of Then Again with Herbie J Polito.
Wow.
Which will be seen shortly.
That will be fun show to watch. That would be a great.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. So Herbie, where can we see the second season of Then Again with Herbie J Polito?
I believe it's going to be airing on YouTube. That's not confirmed yet, but I believe that's where it will debut. So
okay. So we'll have to look for it. We might have to search a little bit, but we're going to find it.
But you know what? As soon as you know the date and the time, send us a link and we'll get it out to our audience.
Terrific.
Good. And we're going to buy your book on Amazon.
Oh, cool. You can certainly buy it on Amazon or through HerbieJPolito.com or Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or as I always try to say, wherever quality books are sold.
Yeah, keep it hidden, why don't you? Yeah.
Herbie J, thank you again
J,
for an amazing conversation. The beauty that we have that the audience doesn't have is that when we sign off here, we continue talking about other stuff. So we'll have to do outtakes someday from that.
With the same shirts.
Yeah.
See you soon, Herbie J. Thank you.
Okay, see you later.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.